Hello and welcome to Mike Drops the Mic. I'm Mike Lineman. Today I have the pleasure of being joined with Bradley Marshall. Bradley is an advocate of the carnivore diet, something that I've been involved with over this month of January, as January is World Carnivore Month. I'm 26 days in right now. Bradley's many, many more days and many more years than me. So I'd love to hear some of Bradley's story. One thing I will say that one thing about the carnivore diet, if you're not familiar with it, essentially it's animal-based diet, and we're talking about eating lots of red meat, eggs, a little bit of cheese, depending on how, if you're doing like a lion-based one or depending on the severity. But it has been used not just for weight loss and overall health, but in Bradley's case, Bradley, would you be willing to tell your story, how it helped you cure your eczema that you had?
Yeah, for sure. I should note this is a brand new camera, so I wasn't going to mention it, but I've just noticed it blurring in and out a few times. So I'm getting used to it. I've healed myself naturally, but I haven't acquired the knowledge of how to use cameras just yet. I'm still fresh to that. But anyway, going back to the carnivore diet. So I'm just saying, if it blurs in and out, I
Yeah,
apologize in
Bradley, it's
advance.
okay. I was talking to you beforehand, and I said you had to get a new camera. Your popularity on social media, all over the internet, it's been exploding since we've seen the success of your results with the carnivore diet. So we have to get you a new camera here because I
That's right.
have a
So
feeling you're going to have all kinds of interviews coming up soon. So
that's right,
I'm
and you can
to
and you
be
can
the test
see in
subject here.
in high definition that there's you can see all the blemishes if there is any, but there's not many anymore. So basically, for those who don't know my story, I started a carnivore diet in June 22, 2022. And so on that date, it took me 14 weeks before I was completely healed. So today, I don't actually eat a carnivore diet. I eat a modified version of the carnivore diet, which includes fruit. So many of the actual foods on the carnivore diet, like eggs, butter, cheese, I just can't tolerate with my eczema. And many people with eczema are the same, as eggs are quite inflammatory, purely because chickens are fed soy and grain. And so you're kind of getting that in the eggs. I'd be keen in the future to try pasture raised, non soy, non grain. But yeah, so I had to modify the carnivore diet to suit me, which I recommend. Not it's not necessarily the case that the carnivore diet is a one fixed pill that heals everyone. You most likely have to tailor it to fix you, and specify it for your own body. So for me, what works is an animal based diet, and I'm very similar in a sense to Paul Saladino, because he had eczema himself and he healed that. Like, his whole problem was like, I'm a doctor. How can I try to heal people who have eczema if I can't even heal my own eczema? And in his book, The Carnivore Code, which is an amazing book, I recommend it. He talks about how debilitating it was for him when he was doing jujitsu and everyone's sweating, and how inflamed it was. And if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I believe in one of his accounts, he was talking about how he was so infected at one point, like he was getting to the point where I don't know if he had sepsis or not, but in my story, I definitely had sepsis. At the worst of my journey, and I went into the hospital, and the doctor was like, "Yeah, lucky you came in, because if you didn't, you would have died in a week." So yeah, it was just debilitating chronic eczema that I endured for 26 years. But these days, yeah, I eat a selection of fruits. As Paul Saladino says, the most optimal version of the diet is fruits plus meat, which is his opinion, but I really respect his opinion. A lot of people call him quacks, and every time I cite him on my Instagram account, everyone says this is the biggest of all quacks. Like, why would you trust Paul Saladino? But the truth is, his diet healed me. And if you're wondering, why do we include fruits if it's animal based carnivore? Like, why are you including fruits if those are plant foods and they have plant toxins? Well, fruits are the least toxic of the plants. So you have a plant toxicity chart, which Paul Saladino talks about, and the plants want you to eat the fruit because they want you to disseminate the fruit. They want you to they want the animals to eat it so that the seeds can be digested, and then when they walk off and they defecate somewhere else, they can germinate further plants growing and extend their species. So it makes sense in an evolutionary perspective you would want why fruits are less toxic than the brassicas and the legumes and the nuts. Like, I was allergic to beans and nuts my whole life, so it really made sense to me when I saw that plant toxicity chart. But yeah, these days I have fruit and meat and fish and sometimes a bit of honey. So you have to really test what works for you. I had no interest in being ideological in my diet. A lot of people, they say, why are you on fruit? What's wrong with you? You're supposed to be team carnivore. I'm just doing what works, and I'm not going to restrict myself from things if my body can't handle it. I really just observed how my body functioned very scientifically. So I began with a 14-week elimination diet of nothing but just meat. And it got to the point where, like, if it worked, I would have sustained that. But Michaela Peterson has been doing it for 6 years, but she admits to supplementing with vitamin C, vitamin D, magnesium, potassium, and calcium. And I really didn't want to supplement with synthetic medicines because I don't trust it over natural organic sources. So that's why about 3 months into the carnivore diet, the lion diet really, because it was just meat, salt, and water, I reincorporated coconuts and avocados with some small spoonfuls of raw honey straight from the farm. So that lasted me a year. And today I'm on the animal-based diet. So yeah, tailor it to what suits you.
Yeah, I think that's perfect because there are people like Dr. Sean Baker who he's a huge advocate, of course, the carnivore diet, and he's very strict with his ribeyes and his his steaks, everything like that. But 100%, you don't know until you try it out. So this month I've been doing lots of meat, of course, a lot of beef. I've been doing the bacon, the eggs, which a lot of people do. I've heard about the eggs being the multivitamin for the
Mm.
carnivore diet. But I can see how after this month, I do want to include berries as well. Fruit
Mm.
being something essential. And we could talk forever about the plant toxicity chart that you mentioned. I follow Paul Saladino on Instagram. He's a huge believer of healing yourself with his diet, with the animal-based diet. So he's very reputable. Some people say he's a quack, but a lot of people say a lot of people are quacks. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, his story is one that worked for you. So there has to be some level of truth and evidence to his story and his teachings in his book if it worked in your case.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's super intriguing for anybody who has not tried it. But you tried it from a gym member. You were at the gym and you were having trouble with your eczema, and you had somebody come up to you and say, "What you should try this carnivore diet out." And you were unfamiliar with it at this point, correct?
Yes, that's right. I was open to the ideas of alternate medicine. So I tried multiple things at that point. I tried Faraday cages because I thought it was the Wi-Fi. A lot of people say that's crazy. Don't think it's the Wi-Fi. But the fact is I had eczema for 26 years, which was kind of manageable until that point. And it was around 2020 when COVID came. So I knew that the new things that were introduced was either COVID. Like people were saying, it could be the lockdowns, the fact that you're locked in your house 24/7. But I've spent a lot of time in my house. Like when I was in VCE, which is in Australia, it's like the year 12 tests, the final exams. So I spent 8 hours plus just studying in my house. Like I'm used to staying in my room, and my room doesn't have carpet. It's very like it's all wooden flooring. So I'm aware of like all the allergens that you need to ensure you're not going to get eczema. For instance, like there's dust mite protectors on my bed. I always have cotton clothes, never polyester, and all the detergent is all sensitive friendly. So in my mind, it couldn't have been the lockdowns. It had to be something because it was just from manageable. It was just debilitating. Like it got to the point where I couldn't leave my bedroom. I couldn't leave my bed. My every just moving my neck would result in it all bleeding. And if you don't know my story, I encourage you just maybe check out my Instagram and you can see some of the photos, and it's you can see what I mean. Like, it was just ridiculous levels of like, well, agony, and it was just so gruesome that I can't even release my content on TikTok because TikTok says it's too graphic to actually release to the public. So that's why on Instagram, it's like I can actually have a following, but on TikTok, it's virtually nothing because they just keep censoring my content.
Yeah.
But the point is, I was open to trying new things. And so there was two things that came in 2020, and that was COVID, and then also the 5G towers. So it could have been either. So I said, I will, with COVID, I can't really do anything to eliminate that. But with the 5G, I can at least test, I can at least reduce the levels of radiation that I'm receiving. And so what's his name? Dr. McCullough actually talks about this. He talks, and as well as Robert F. Kennedy. He's not a scientist, but he's a lawyer who scrutinized a lot of the science. And in his interviews, he talks about when you're subjected to Wi-Fi radiation, you have your blood-brain barrier becomes more porous, which allows more toxins into your brain. And so it's not healthy. And there was all this research that says it affects your skin in a negative way. It makes your skin dry. It can cause inflammation. So I said, I really need to find a way to eliminate this Wi-Fi. So I set up a Faraday cage. I bought one of Dr. McCullough's Faraday cages. And well, of course, it was actually very improved in the sense that I was able to sleep more than I would without the Wi-Fi. And Paul Saladino even talks about this: turn the Wi-Fi off at night, because it's all aggregating. It's all inflammation that adds up. But long story short, I realized then I had an allergy to metals. So I just couldn't deal with the metals. I changed it from silver. I had an intense silver allergy and bronze allergy, and I changed it to aluminium, which was kind of okay. But in the end, it just wasn't enough, because the real problem was diet. So I brought that story up because basically I'm showing you that I was open to all of these alternate therapies that, like, otherwise what made me believe this guy in the gym, this random guy that doesn't have any qualifications in medicine, like, the reason why is because I was already open and trying many different things leading up to it. I was already trying cold water therapy, saunas, exercising. I was trying to heal myself holistically, because I'd already tried everything under the sun when it comes to eczema in Western medicine. So that was 26 years of every possible therapy they had to offer, apart from Dupixent. And Dupixent is this injection that they get you to take twice a month that basically suppresses the expression of eczema in your body. It's not an immunosuppressant like methotrexate. It's other drugs that you inject yourself with, which Michaela Peterson was taking for her arthritis, and many people take for eczema as well. But that suppresses the whole immune system. Dupixent just suppresses this one cytokine called interleukin. So it was more targeted, it was more safe, but you still have these things, like you get conjunctivitis in your eyes as a side effect. You have sometimes bloating, skin sensitivity in the sun. You burn more easily. So there's all these problems. So I was just like, you know what? This is relatively new in the sense that it's only been around in the UK for 5 to 10 years max. And there's not a lot of people online are complaining about how they've got blurry eyes now. I mean, worse, blurry vision. The worst case scenario is you get such bad conjunctivitis that you need to manage with more steroids. So steroids have been the problem my whole life, and I'll get to that. But you need to manage your conjunctivitis now with more steroids. So you got off steroids, but you need more steroids to manage the side effects from the new drugs that they're giving you. And the worst case scenario is you get corneal abrasion, which can cause cataracts and blindness. So I'm just like, I've got eczema. I don't want to go blind. And of course, the doctors were like, that's very rare cases, Brad. You know, people take Dupixent who have eczema who's not as extreme as you. You should just take it. I mean, I had so many friends who had eczema all telling me, just take it. You'll feel so much better. You don't have to try any wacky quack diets where you're restricting yourself and you can't even go out to eat because everything's cooked in seed oils. Just try Dupixent and you can have a higher quality of life. But yeah, I was very disillusioned, and I see people on Dupixent and methotrexate today, and they're friends of mine, but they're looking bloated. They're looking a bit overweight taking this medicine. I just don't think it's healthy to suppress your, not maybe not suppress your immune system, because people are very specific about that, but suppress a cytokine and suppress part of your immune system, uh, your cytokines, interleukin. I don't think it's healthy to suppress anything in your body long term. Your body's expressing eczema for a reason. In fact, I'm very grateful, and many people are, who have eczema, who have healed it for their eczema, because it's an alarm system. It's like a warning alarm going off saying, you're eating something wrong. Change your diet, fix something in your life. There's something wrong in your environment, whether you're eating it, whether it's mold, whether it's your bed sheets, whether it's your clothes, your detergent, something's wrong. Change it. You can't just ignore that and then put a band-aid on and suppress it for the rest of your life. It's not healthy. It's just going to manifest in deeper ways. And doctors actually talk about this. I remember listening to Abby, which is eczema conquerors. When I was dying with severe eczema, I'd just be listening to her in my bed all night when I couldn't sleep. And so I forget the study she cited, but she talks about, hang on, let me just scrap my train of thought. She talks about, it'll come back to me. But anyway, so in terms of eczema, it's going to bug me that I forgot that one. But in terms of eczema, yeah, it took me 14 weeks to completely heal. Okay. And yeah, it'll come back to me. It took me 14 weeks to completely heal, and yeah, you don't want to just have something transient. You don't want to have. That's the problem with these medicines. You like, I was in and out of the hospital every 6 months, and they'd constantly prescribe me antibiotics and steroid creams on and off, and it's just about managing it. Every 6 months it would get worse, and then you go back on the steroids. But the problem is, I had topical steroid withdrawal, which is you're just masking the problem. You're just masking it. And so for 26 years, I was receiving higher and higher doses of steroid creams, higher and higher doses. So it got to the point where I reached the highest dose, just like a drug addict. Like if you're on heroin, you can't get the same hit. Right. It's like, this is not working anymore. So I got to the highest dose, the highest potency. And that, I believe, is the reason why my eczema got so bad. And it just happened to coincide with COVID and 5G towers being released. But that was the main reason. It was topical steroid withdrawal. And so it forced me. It got to a point where steroids no longer work. I just have to be forced into withdrawal, because nothing I applied on my skin would work. So what steroids are is this artificial form of cortisol, which you're applying onto your body. And so your body can't produce its own natural cortisol. Mm-hmm. So it just got to the point where it stopped working. I was forced into 3 years of complete agony, where I was constantly searching for alternate therapies. I started cold water therapy, started doing the sauna. I started drinking this filtered water, which is ionized. I did every single thing possible under the sun that could work. And interestingly, I actually found out last night from someone who messaged me saying, "Oh, do you drink Kangen water?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Oh, Paul Saladino actually talks about Kangen water and how it's not actually optimal on a carnivore diet." So there you go. Like if you're drinking high alkaline 9.5 pH water, apparently that doesn't work well with the carnivore diet. But for me, it's working fine. I don't have any gastric reflux. I feel the most healthy I have ever been in my life, and you can literally see it. Yeah. So I don't know. You've got to experiment with your diet. Yeah. But yeah.
Absolutely. I have a few questions there. That was all great stuff you were talking about there. You know, we talk about Michaela Peterson. For anyone who doesn't know, that's Jordan Peterson's daughter. She had arthritis at a young age, completely cured with her carnivore diet. The inflammation's gone down, the swelling. She manages it quite well. There's lots of different, for the carnivore diet, there's so many different things that it can be used to treat. One thing I'm curious about is this. The steroids and the creams and all the different things that you were taking for 26 years, these doctors had been giving you, and then you go to them and you go 14 weeks on the carnivore diet. When did you approach them after and say, "Hey, listen, these creams, these steroids, they weren't working because my symptoms have gotten worse. I'm going through withdrawal with the cream." What was their reaction like when you told them that, "Hey, I'm going on this carnivore diet to see if it treats my eczema better than the steroids and cream are?"
Yeah. I went back to the doctors in there's a medical center in Melbourne called Monash Medical Center. So I went back there and I saw my doctor, but it wasn't because of my eczema. Actually, I was going in because I had like a small angioma, which is benign, harmless. It's just like a small red dot that I was just wanted to get checked. And I asked him about it. He said, it's fine. It's just aesthetic, whether you want to get it cut off enough. So I just left it there. But he was like, "Oh, how's your eczema?" Because I'd be seeing him for every day, not every day, maybe three or four times a week for UV treatments. So this is like, it's like red light therapy, which I think is a lot more healthy, but this is like in the UV spectrum, it's white light. And you have to wear these glasses to cover your eyes because it's just so intense. It's like a solarium. And my dad was even saying, like, "Why? I don't really trust this. Does this cause cancer?" And he says, "No, it's fine. There's no possibility of that. There is a possibility, but it's very rare." But if I did my own research and I was using this cream on my face called Elidel, which suppresses proteins in the expression of eczema on my face, at least. So I was using that for like 20 years plus. And it says, well, you shouldn't use steroids or Elidel for longer than a year. That's for one, on the side of the packet. And the other thing is, it says, do not use in conjunction with UV therapy because you're at increased risk of cancer. So
Wow.
I'm just like, these doctors are ridiculous. I mean, 1 in 2 people die of cancer in their lifetime, and they're just saying it's all rare, it's all rare, it's all fine. I don't think it's fine at all. I think if you can go toward natural healing as soon as you can, you're in a better place than if you're applying these band-aids and these creams indefinitely for the rest of your life. I think in the future, if our medicine ever improves, because there is a how do I say it? There is an incentive to not improve medicine if it's earning billions of dollars a year.
That's a long conversation for sure.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, if in the future we manage to have better medicine, I think in the future they'll look back and think what we're doing now is barbaric. Just band-aid, applying masks on all of our on skin disorders and hoping it'll just literally just hoping it'll go away and trying to manage it through masking it. It's like if you're driving a car and you're running out of petrol, instead of actually filling it up with petrol, you just put a band-aid on the little light that says you're out of petrol and say, "Oh, it's all good."
Yeah.
And yeah, you got to heal it holistically. It has to start from the gut. So anyway, I went back to this doctor and seeing my angioma, which was benign, and he said, "Yeah, how's your eczema?" And I said, "Well, look at it. It's good, isn't it?"
Yeah.
And then he said, "Oh, what are you doing? That's amazing. I can't believe how good your eczema is. It's not virtually not a problem." And he said, "Yeah, it's not a problem." And I said, "Well, I had the book in my bag actually because I thought he might bring it up.
Hmm.
So I had the Carnivore code in my bag. I took out Paul Saladino's book. I said, "This is what healed me." Straight away, yeah, his mood changed. He is just like, "Brad, you really don't want to listen to what people are saying online, all these quack doctors." I mean, it worked for me though. Yeah,
Yeah.
it worked for you, but I'd be very wary of what your internal organs are. You might have atherosclerosis and heart disease by the time you're 45. You could be, and you say it works for you, but I can still see some dry patches here. So you could still benefit from Dupixent.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's just even when I was questioning the doctors on Dupixent, they were saying you really don't want to trust these online forums where they talk about their side effects. You want to trust a doctor who has 10 years plus experience. Yeah, I don't doubt that. I respect doctors, and I think they have to go through a lot of intense education of 10 years. But throughout that education, as Paul Saladino talks about, they only have 14 hours of dietary knowledge given to them.
Nutrition.
So it's nutritional knowledge that is given to them. So it's very limited. So literally, you could look up your own nutritional education online and have a more thorough understanding than the doctors do. I'm not an expert myself. I'm not a doctor. I've just managed to heal myself by taking information from the doctors out there, like Paul Saladino, Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Sean Baker, Dr. Anthony Shafee. I took their advice. I wasn't afraid of them being quacks. I really listened to what they had to say and gave it a chance. I was only intending to last 30 days, but I continued until today because it healed me completely. A lot of people are afraid to try new things because they have no reason to. I mean, if they're not dying, but the thing is, you don't realize how sick you are until you go on this diet. And then I'm not saying people are sick in general, but people say like, oh, in your 30s, your knees start to lock up. Oh, you get a bit, I'm tired now. I don't want to go out as much. That's nonsense. People, Sean Baker's breaking world records at 55.
Yeah.
You don't need to feel like you're getting old. And I really do believe it's because of largely because of diet. People's diets right now are all processed food. They're drinking, beer, which is wheat and grains, and they're eating like a lot of Asian families are eating rice, which is all another grain. And as South Park actually shared, I put it on my story. There's this episode where they put Truth in Plain Sight, where he talks about the pyramid is upside down, and Joe Rogan talks about this too. Meat and fats should be the number one, but it's vilified to the end, and people are afraid to eat it. So we should be eating grains and vegetables the least, but everyone talks about the power of vegetables. And I've got a lot of vegan friends, and it's great that it's working for them. But a lot of my vegan friends, I've reached out to interview, and they say, no, I don't want to be interviewed right now because I have iron deficiency, which is quite bad. So I had to reintroduce meat. Well, there you go. And I don't want to criticize them at all because everything's a journey, and it may work for them, and they're beautiful people. And who's to say I'm right? It's working for me now. But there are carnivores out there who are 20 years plus on the carnivore diet, and it works optimally. As Paul Saladino says, and again, I'm not ideological in that sense that I'm saying this, I'm right, you're wrong. I incorporated fruit because I think, as Paul Saladino says, that is the most optimal diet, fruit plus meat. Whereas vegetables, as Dr. Kilt says, is scarcity food. It's food you eat when you're on survival mode and this meat's not available to you. So you have to resort to the vegetables. And even, I believe there's even quotes in the Bible that says vegetables are for only for survival and for the poor who can't afford to eat meat. So, I mean, yeah, you don't want to use the carnivore diet as a last resort. I mean, sorry, I used the carnivore diet because I was dying. People are afraid to try new things like the carnivore diet because they're afraid of atherosclerosis, heart disease, cancer. You don't need to be afraid. 30 days is not going to kill you on a carnivore diet. Try it if you're willing. We're at the end of the carnivore month now, but you can try it any time during the year. Yeah. Try it. See how you feel after 30 days. And this is what Sean Baker talks about. He said, I had no idea I felt this good. And so every time when he finished the carnivore diet, he reintroduced standard diet foods. He felt groggy and he felt bloated again. So he just said, you know what? I'm just going to stay on a carnivore diet. And he stayed that way since. So you really don't know how good you'll feel until you're on it.
That's the reason I wanted to try it. As I mentioned, January is World Carnivore Month, and it's not because I need to try the diet. It's because I want to try the diet. I want to see what it does to my body. I want to see the results with my weight, see weight loss potentially, see my strength increase. As you said, Sean Baker's breaking world records at 55. So
Exactly.
this month is a trial for me. I'm feeling great right now. I've lost about 6 pounds this month. And
Amazing.
I'm a lean, mean fight machine right now, bro. So I'm feeling good. I'm keeping it going. But I want to ask you this because you have been doing this for a while, and the two biggest questions I get asked are, what about the vitamins? Okay.
Mm.
And yes, there's lots of vitamins in red meat, ribeyes, and things like that. But usually what people do is they, if they're willing to, they go for the organs, right? There's lots of
Hmm.
evidence that Joe Rogan's talked about and Sean Baker, and I think Paul Saladino's definitely talked about it too, about the heart and the liver being the most valuable and nutritious parts of the animal. And
Hmm.
even like one of them, I forget which one it was, talk about the wolf pack, right? Like if there's a
Yeah, Joe Rogan talked about that.
Joe Rogan, okay, you know where I'm talking about then. The
Yeah.
wolf pack. So if there's a pack of wolves, usually the alpha in the group is the one that gets the heart because
Mm.
it's the most nutritious, it's the most valuable to them. Well, there was a guy who came along and he decided that he was going to come and eat the heart in front of these wolves.
Mm.
The wolves then looked at him bewildered and they were like, did this guy really just do this? And it turns out that then they almost started following him and looking at him like he was the alpha, the leader, because he ate the heart. So
That's
there's
right.
lots of evidence that the heart and the liver, the most nutritious part, the most valuable, you can get lots of nutrients and vitamins from them. But what about, we hear about vegetables and all these different things having all these important nutrients that you have to have. Otherwise, you're going to get cancer, you're going to get some type of a disease. How do you respond to people who ask you that question? Because it seems like everyone's concerned about the high cholesterol levels and the whole there's lots of people talking about HDL, LDL levels, really cholesterol not being so much of a factor at all. I mean, there's people like you said who have been doing this for 20 years plus who have been on the
Mm.
carnivore diet and they're thriving. So,
Hmm.
how would you answer that question when people ask you, well, how can you be getting vitamins? How can you be getting the right nutritions? Don't you worry about your cholesterol? How do you
Mm.
respond?
Yeah, well, just touching on the wolves, it's not just the wolves, it's the orcas as well. The whales, orcas are known to kill sharks just for their liver. Um, yeah, so in terms of answering the vegetable like dilemma, a lot of people say, with vegetables, people actually commented just recently with vegetables, it activates the sulforaphane you're talking about, which is vilified and is you're saying is a toxin, plant toxin that actually activates the NRF2 pathway, which is what Paul Saladino talks about. It's putting your body in a state of stress, like hormetic stress, hormesis. The thing is, yes, putting your body under stress is good, but you can get that same stress by working out. You can get that same stress by going in the sauna, by doing cold plunges, and you're not subjected to the plant toxins in the process. So like for people like me, the benefit from vegetables is outweighed by the inflammation. So there's just no point in me eating it. For other people, it may not be the case. So I'm not saying everyone should cut out vegetables. But having said that, 99.99% of all of the plant toxins, 99.99% of all the pesticides you eat aren't actually man made. They're actually inherently inside the plant as defense chemicals, 99.99%. And I recently made a reel about that, which I cited the study. This is straight from Dr. Kills. So you can activate your NRF2 pathways by other means, cold plunges, sauna, exercise. You don't need to rely on vegetables to activate that NRF2 pathway. And Paul Saladino talks about this on the Joe Rogan Experience. He talks about how it's not necessary to eat vegetables because you can get the same benefits from sauna, cold plunge, exercise. So why would you want to subject yourself to the plant toxins if the benefits you can actually get elsewhere and you don't have to worry about poisoning your body in the process? So in terms of nutrients, I get all the nutrients I need from organs, and I also include coconut and avocado because the biggest thing is electrolytes. I noticed straight away that I was getting huge, horrible cramps on a lion diet only because I was deficient in magnesium, potassium, calcium. I really needed those electrolytes and I wasn't getting them enough. So for that reason, Michaela Peterson supplements, but I'd recommend just if you want to go all natural, which I implement, I'd recommend eating coconuts because it's just high in electrolytes, and drinking that coconut water, magnesium, potassium, calcium's all in there. And I had avocados, but avocados and coconuts are both high in salicylates, and there's other plant toxins in avocado that might affect you. It does affect me transiently, but not as bad as citrus fruits, or berries are actually high in oxalates. So I tend to avoid strawberries and the blueberries. Interestingly, I know you said before you wanted to try berries.
Yeah.
It might work for you. You know, we're all different, but for me, because of the high oxalate content, like plant toxins, people in general should be aware of is oxalates, lectins, polyphenols, flavonoids. So another one which I always beta. I always have trouble pronouncing beta because I learned about it recently. Beta carotene or something, carotene, which is present. I just learned about this recently in a beautiful Twitter Spaces, which is present in the leafy greens. So that causes inflammation too. So you got to be wary of these plant toxins. So that's why I avoid berries, because they're higher in oxalates. But all of the other fruits, all being organic, even if they're high in carbs and high in sugar, that's okay because it's natural, non-processed sugar. I I think it's absolutely healthy to have that thriving optimal diet of fruit plus meat. So anything from I eat bananas, apples, mangoes. Um, I even have organic dates. So the dates is a tough one because dried fruit is usually spread with sulfur. So it's the same reason I avoid minced beef, because in Australia, minced beef is sprayed with sulfur. Like sulfur is just very detrimental. It's a preservative which just really inflames your gut. So when I purchased no sulfur dates straight from Israel, it was amazing. There was no reaction whatsoever.
Well,
So yeah, it's just a selection of fruit.
yeah, I think one of the things with me and the berries too is before going on this carnivore diet, I've been doing keto for a while, and the
Hmm.
ketogenic diets worked really well for me. I feel really good, and a lot of those berries are low in carbs, which is something that, I try
Mm.
like 30 gram carb or lower during the day. But I could see myself in the future when I'm done with this carnivore diet, if I could see myself going towards a meat and fruit type of a mindset, because I do miss certain things, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's certain things you can't have, but yeah. So I don't want to take up too much of your time here. I have a couple last questions for you. One of them being, if you're starting out like me, I'm in my first month here doing the carnivore diet. What are some things you wish you would have known before starting the diet? Anything you could have done better to have better results? I know yours with eczema, it cleared up just like you wanted to in 14 weeks. But were there any adjustments you could have made, whether it's through meal preparation or just any sort of beginner tips and tricks for someone maybe looking to get started with this?
Yeah. I'd say the biggest one for me was the cramps. So just reintroducing those electrolytes through coconut and avocado. And coconut and avocado is also on the keto diet because they're low carbs. So that was a big one for me. And also just okay, let me think. I want to give you a good answer. Just like
While you're
yeah.
thinking here, I just want to add this here. One thing about doing this carnivore diet this month too, while it may be used to say, hey, I'm feeling stronger than I ever have. I've lost 6 pounds, and it can, like we said, there's different variations what you can do with it. It also says something about your mental toughness and your mindset as well. Because as Americans, at least, and I'm sure it's the same way in Australia, we're used to all the processed foods. We're used to it's just the typical diet, and you just go through your day not even really considering what you're eating for some people. And actually shocking your system and doing something like this will make you so mentally tough. If you're not
Mm.
used to it, it really can do wonders for your mindset. And I think by doing it, what do they say? It takes 1 month to build a healthy habit, right? like
Yeah, yeah.
30 days of, so I mean, 30 days to kind of reset yourself and do something with the carnivore diet here. It hasn't been easy when I've been doing it, but I tell you what, anybody who really is looking for weight loss or try to refocus or start 2024 here on the right foot, it doesn't just have to be January. You can try doing the carnivore diet here for a little bit and see what kind of results you get, because you might surprise yourself, you
Yeah.
know?
I'd say I've thought about what I wanted to say.
All right,
I
hear it.
I'd suggest fasting is a big one
Oh
which you
yeah,
can add to the carnivore diet because
yeah.
for me, I was eating 4 steaks a day, and I get it; it's expensive. So fasting is great because you can save money. And Dr. Huberman, I think, I don't know if he's a doctor. Sorry, the Huberman podcast. He was talking about how fasting actually allows your body time to eliminate all those parasites. It gives you time to, you're not overloading your stomach constantly with food. It gives you time to undergo autophagy and cellular cleanse all those cells that are old and damaged and repair them. So fasting is a great addition to the carnivore diet, which I would, if I implemented it pretty early on, but at the same time I would have done that from the start. So it took me a while to sort of get into this 16-8 cycle. So for 16 hours a day, I fast. I have my first meal around 2 p.m. and I eat within an 8 hour window. So usually today, actually, I just have one meal a day. And it's purely because it's not hard to do. Like I'm not forcing myself to fast. I just don't feel like eating. If you're eating a lot of meat, people say it's heavy to digest, or I mean, I guess it is, but in a way, it's good because you don't have to have 3 meals a day. You have one meal, and you feel full the whole day, and it's beautiful because you just get so much more time to, if you're like me and I'm just constantly creating stuff, and I don't have really time to just cook. I mean, if you cook and then clean and eat, that's like 2 hours gone. And if you do that 3 times a day, that's 6 hours. So and I get it, you can meal prep as well, but it just opens up so much time, and it's healthy. It's not something you should be afraid of. I mean, my parents are always saying, it's not healthy to fast all day. You might get an ulcer. I just don't believe that.
Yeah.
And I'll need to do more research on that, why it's the case that people get ulcers. But from the research I've done, perhaps it's an acidity thing. Um, I'm ignorant in that field as of yet, but from the research I've done from Dr. Kiltz and Paul Saladino, they all advocate fasting and they're not averse to it. So I just embraced it, and I still practice it to this day. And I think it's a great addition to the carnivore diet.
I've been doing fasting for the last couple of years. I love fasting. It actually started, funny enough. I used to wrestle when I was in high school, and sometimes I would fast unintentionally, trying to lose weight in a not healthy way. But there is a healthy way to fast. There's a right way to do it. So I've been doing it for the last couple of years, and I'll do it occasionally. I love it. The person who turned me on to it was Peter Attia. He's an expert of longevity. He's on that show with Chris Hemsworth on National Geographic. They have a whole episode about fasting, the benefits of
Nice.
it, and the cleansing of your body. And really, it can be used to help potentially in the future treat things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. Just it's a clean reset.
Mm.
I've done a 4 day fast before. That's the longest
Wow.
I've done. But there's
Mm.
lots of and just water. That's it. But
Mm.
there's lots of science backing fasting. And the problem is a lot of people, they're used to the system where they wake up and they have their coffee and they say, okay, well now it's time to get breakfast because it's the most important meal of the day. And they have their breakfast.
Yeah, it's
And
really
then
not.
lunchtime comes around and they say, okay, well it's lunchtime. I need my energy for the afternoon, better eat lunch. And dinner, well, I'm hungry. I had a long day at work and they eat dinner. You don't need 3 meals a day. You know, I'm usually eating one meal a day or 2 meals a day. And if I'm doing that, if I'm eating one meal a day, realistically, it's a 23-hour fast and 1 hour eating. You know what I mean? It's intermittent fasting, even if you're doing two. So
Mm.
fasting is something I absolutely recommend. And it's really worked wonders for me and the way I feel. And I feel like getting me in shape and things of that nature too. Peter Attia
Mm.
is the man though. If you or anybody listening hasn't checked him out, Peter Attia has lots of good podcasts, and he's been on Joe Rogan a bunch too, just
Wow.
like Paul Saladino.
Yeah, yeah. I got to check him out. You know,
Yeah,
the good thing about fasting too, Jordan Peterson talks about how sharp you feel on a carnivore diet. And I think he practices fasting too.
yeah,
But for me, I notice the mental acuity the most when I'm fasting. So, I mean, I remember doing a podcast and it was late at night. So I was eating beforehand
yeah.
and I just felt so groggy in my mind. I'm like, oh, I don't know what it is. Perhaps like all the blood is going and all the energy is going toward digesting. And so you just don't have the same mental acuity. But when you're fasting, and the longest fast I've done as well is 3 days. So my sister, kudos to you doing 4 days. My sister, she says she does a 10-day fast, but she also drinks coffee and she doesn't think it breaks her fast. So I don't know if I count that. But but at the same time, this the longest fast in the world is like longer than a year. It's. Did you know that? Is
Didn't
I
know
did
that.
a
That's news to me. That's crazy. I can't even imagine
yeah.
that he
This
could.
guy was like heavily obese, and yeah, he just fasted and just had water and a full year. I didn't realize that was even possible.
I think it was.
um,
I didn't know that. I thought it was like
yeah,
3 weeks you could go or something like that. I guess I'm way off. But
yeah, but yeah, the mental acuity you get from fasting is just great. Like what I love to do in the morning is I'd love to do deep work and just do whatever my content or my writing or study. I do all that in the morning until 2 p.m. or around then, or even before that, I'll work out. And once I finish my whole routine and all of it's done, that's when I eat at night. Sometimes at 6 p.m. at night. So, and by then, you know, you feel groggy and you just feel tired after you eat. At least I do anyway. And so the moment I eat, I don't want to keep working. It's just like in European countries when they have a siesta. Once you eat, I just feel like sleeping.
one of the interesting comparisons I heard about fasting, you talk about a lot of that. There's lots of tribes in Africa where they'll go 3, 4 days without eating. They fast for 3, 4 days, and then they go out and they hunt. And the reason they do
Mm,
this is because they know, well, one, well, they better get something, otherwise they're going to starve. But two,
mm.
it's that they know that their mental clarity, their reflexes, there's like this weird point in time between 3 or 4 days when you're in your ketone levels are way down and you're just like you're it's almost like Spider-Man, like your senses are enhanced. And that's when
Yeah.
they choose to go out and they hunt this way and they're successful doing so. And I almost feel that when I fasted a little bit too,
Mm.
like before I do any schoolwork or before I go to the gym. Like I like going to the gym a little bit hungry because it
Yeah,
makes me,
same, same.
but if I'm a little bit hungry, it makes me almost a little ornery, maybe a little angry. And I just feel like
Yeah.
I get better results if I go to the gym when I fasted a little bit,
Well,
you know?
especially doing abs. I mean, when you're doing sit-ups, I cannot do that even with 2 hours of eating prior. I love doing sit-ups on an empty stomach.
Absolutely. Well,
Mm.
Bradley, I want to thank you so much for chatting with me a little bit.
No
I know we're
worries.
a little bit over time, but I wanted to say that on Instagram, Bradley, your Instagram, Bradley Marshall Official,
That's
but
right.
we also have Instagram, Brad Marshall Music.
Yeah.
We're doing all kinds of good stuff here. So give Bradley a follow on his Bradley Marshall Official and Brad Marshall Music. We love to see what kind of things you're up to. Like I said, your social media has exploded with the results from your eczema treatment through the carnivore diet. Is there any place else people should follow you and stay up to date with what you have going on?
Yeah, so my YouTube is I cured my eczema. It's just one word. And I'm trying to expand that. And yeah, those are my main platforms. TikTok is not as present purely because they censor it so much, but I do have an account there too called I cured my eczema. So yeah, that's where you can keep track of me.
Perfect. I'll make sure to tag those links below this video so everyone can check it out and stay up to date with you. Bradley, any closing messages here, or are we good to go?
Um, I think, yeah, always just keep a critical mindset about everything I've said or what everyone else says. Just, I think it's a great time to be critical thinking about what's good for you and what's not. You know, they talk about atherosclerosis, cancer, and cancer, like meat causes cancer or atherosclerosis. You got to really analyze the science and don't just blindly trust what they're telling you in the media or mainstream science. I think it's a great time to start critical thinking about many different issues. And I get it. It's like if you're working a 40-hour work week, 9 to 5, you get home and you're tired. And so you tend to just trust medical experts. But the medical experts include people like Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Paul Saladino, which they're spending a lot of time researching these studies. And people can call them quacks, but they are doctors and they're scrutinizing the evidence. And so I'd consider them a position of expertise. So even the experts are contradicting themselves. So it's really important to remain critical in everything you do. Question everything. Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing. I think there's not a lot of critical thinkers right now. I think you should take everything with a grain of salt and do your own research. Because then when you start to realize that maybe some of the things with the pharmaceutical companies, the processed food companies, all these different things that maybe we thought we were supposed to believe, with the food pyramid being upside down and everything like that, your eyes will open up and you'll start to see some real truth and see the real benefits for what can help you.
Yeah, and it really stems into everything, like even industrial agriculture. There's an amazing book I read by Gabe Brown, who's in North Dakota, and he talks about regenerative agricultural farming, and he talks about all the pesticides we're applying, all the glyphosate, the Roundup, Monsanto. He talks about the fact that well, right now Bill Gates is buying up all the land or the farmland, and the processes of which he's practicing is industrial farming, where they till the soil, they kill everything every single season to grow new crops, and that's just not how it should be. He talks about in the soil, and there's an amazing Netflix documentary called Dirt to Soil as well, where he's interviewed in that. I think Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson. He narrates it. So there's this amazing statistics like the soil needs this fungi called mycorrhizal fungi to provide it the phosphorus. But the thing is, we're spraying glyphosate and glyphosate, applying this artificial phosphorus, and so just like my skin, it's a kind of like a analogy here, kind of like my skin relying on the steroids, the artificial cortisol. Our skin of the earth, the dirt, is relying on this artificial Monsanto glyphosate, Roundup. It's just relying on artificial phosphorus when it really should be getting it holistically from the mycorrhizal fungi. And so Gabe Brown does this amazing TED talk where he succinctly talks about everything, where if they're not getting enough nutrients, then you need more pesticides. If you're not getting enough pesticides, you need more fertilizer, and all of this thing that just adds up and you got a pest control where it's just not a natural environment anymore. And so his like white oak pastures and his farm in North Dakota, the difference between his farm and the standard farms are astounding. Like the ability to sequester carbon into the soil is potentially reversing even global warming. And this is what Alan Savory talks about, biologist Alan Savory. He talks about how if half the world's grasslands just adopt a regenerative agricultural farm model, we could reverse global warming in like 50 years. Wow. So it's because you need to create carbon sinks. And these farms do that. So white oak pastures actually sequester 3.5 pounds of carbon per pound of meat into the soil every year. So 3.5 pounds. That's a carbon sink, and it's just so people who say this is great, the carnivore diet may work for you, but what about the earth? Like, what about all the fact that there's so much cows releasing methane? If you're adopting the right practice, like you're buying grass-fed beef versus factory farmed beef, then you don't have to worry about that. You're actually saving the planet. So I bought grass-fed beef this whole time because I don't want to have beef that's fed grains, but at the same time, I don't have to worry about the factory farming killing the earth as well. So it's great. So if you can afford it, I recommend grass-fed beef, so you don't have to worry about, you can be environmentally ethical if you are concerned about the earth, which I guess we definitely should be.
Probably should be.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much again, Bradley, for your
No
time.
worries.
I appreciate it. And I'll make sure to tag your Instagram, YouTube, and your TikTok also.